Chosen one. A cult learned the cost, and every head carries a heavy price under a higher court. You were targeted only after attempts to erase you failed. This chapter ends with revelation, not retaliation. Justice arrives orderly, precise, and unavoidable now. A fatal mistake was made the moment you were targeted, a mistake that's going to cost everything. See, what appeared to be just another human being was actually a spiritually armed force walking in disguise. When the attack launched against you, it wasn't personal to those doing the attacking. It was business, spiritual business, a coordinated effort to break your spirit, hijack your purpose, and keep you locked in survival mode while they fed off your light. But here's what they didn't count on. The universe doesn't ignore attacks on protected vessels, especially when that vessel is a chosen one, carrying a divine assignment. Every single thing they did against you was recorded. Every plot, every lie, every ritual, every time they whispered your name with malice. All of it was archived in invisible files, being reviewed by forces much greater than human judgment. And now comes the consequence. The law of the spirit doesn't play games. When someone intentionally sets out to harm someone carrying a divine assignment, there's a shift in the heavens. The offense doesn't just echo, it triggers protocols. It opens doors for spiritual retaliation, not because you asked for revenge, but because balance has to be restored. They didn't just attack you as a person, they touched something sacred, and by doing so, they signed their own spiritual death warrants. Not necessarily physical death, though some of that might be coming too, but the kind of unraveling that exposes, isolates, and dismantles every false power they thought they had. The kind of exposure that strips away the illusion they wore like armor. The kind of downfall that doesn't even need your hands on it. They broke a universal law: never lay hands spiritually or physically on someone marked for a divine mission. And now the bounty is real, but it's on them. Your existence became their undoing, not because of what you did, but who you are. They couldn't figure out why nothing they tried against you worked. You weren't loud. You didn't have a powerful army. You didn't threaten anyone or expose anyone publicly. But still, you disrupted everything they built against you. That's because the real power wasn't in your actions, it was in your identity. You carry something that can't be mimicked, copied, or faked, divine identity, and that alone was enough to destabilize their entire system. They thought you had to be flashy to be dangerous. They assumed unless you were physically fighting back, you were no threat. But what they didn't count on was your spirit being encoded with truth, pure, undiluted, undeniable truth. And truth is the one thing that destroys deception from the inside out. You stood near them and their false confidence began to crack. You never had to say much because your energy was already convicting everything around you. They operated in manipulation, illusion, and fear. But you showed up grounded, untouched by their games, and it exposed just how artificial their authority really was. They needed rituals, symbols, and secret alliances to feel powerful, but you walked with a quiet fire that came straight from the source, and that terrified them. You weren't dangerous because you were trying to bring them down. You became dangerous because you represented everything they couldn't control. That's why they launched attack after attack. But each one failed, because no matter what they threw at you, they couldn't rewrite what was encoded in your spirit. Now let me tell you about the price on every head involved. This is cosmic compensation for the time you were hunted. Spiritual consequences don't operate on the same timeline as human ones. But when those consequences hit, the impact is devastating. They thought the harm against you was going unchecked, but every move they made was stacking up a debt. And now that debt has matured. The price isn't symbolic, it's payment due for the hell they put you through. Your peace wasn't their only target. They tried to rewrite your entire destiny. They set out to drain your energy. They wanted to hijack your purpose. They meant to keep you locked in survival mode while they fed off your light. But here's where it all backfired. The more they tried to tear you down, the more powerful your spirit became. And now the universe is demanding justice, not revenge. justice, and it always comes with interest. You were never just a victim, you were a walking covenant. Every attack against you was like trying to rob a bank with heaven as its security system. They did it repeatedly, recklessly, with the assumption that nothing would happen. But now that energy is circling back, and the weight is heavier because of how long it was ignored. The longer they got away with it, the deeper the charge became. They built an entire agenda off your downfall, and now shock is setting in, that it's costing them everything. They expected you'd break, but you grew. They expected you'd collapse, but you evolved. And now they're being held accountable, not just for what they did, but for what they tried to stop. You were the assignment they couldn't complete, and that's why they're marked. They were never operating alone. Whether they knew it or not, they were being used as tools, spiritual pawns in a much bigger game. Their assignment wasn't random. It was coordinated, intentional, and cruel. Their job was to break your spirit, manipulate your mind, and make sure you never remembered who you really are. But they underestimated one crucial thing: the resilience of someone chosen by divine order. You weren't just another target, you were a test, a living, breathing spiritual checkpoint. They were sent to see if they could corrupt purity, derail purpose, and destroy divine light. And they failed, not because they didn't try hard enough, but because you were never built to be broken by them. What they thought was weakness in you, your kindness, your silence, your compassion, was actually your strongest weapon. It exposed their intent, it revealed their emptiness, it blocked every trap they laid. It wasn't just the initial attack that marked them, it was what they did after they saw you survive. They could have backed off, they could have repented, walked away, admitted they were wrong, but instead they doubled down, they obsessed, they plotted harder, they called in reinforcements. That's when it changed from a failed assignment to a sealed judgment. Their spiritual debt became bloodbound because they kept touching what was already proven to be protected. Every extra lie they told, every extra ritual they performed, every smear campaign, every psychic attack just made it worse. They didn't stop when the signs were clear, and in the spirit realm that means they rejected correction. They refused to course correct, which spiritually locked them into the consequences of their actions. Now they're not just people who made bad choices. They're marked by their own obsession, marked by the divine record, marked by a judgment they triggered through stubborn pride. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. Every curse they sent became currency for their own destruction. Every single curse they sent your way came with a price tag, and they knew it. People playing with witchcraft love to act powerful, but deep down they know the forces they call on don't work for free. Collection always comes. And when the spells didn't work on you, when every hex, binding, ritual and energy drain failed, they still had to pay. That's the rule. Whether it succeeds or not, the debt is owed. They thought they could target you in secret, burning candles, burying your name in jars, chanting your downfall under full moons. But what they didn't realize was this: you were spiritually out of range, covered, protected. What they sent hit a divine wall and bounced straight back, multiplied. Not only did their curses boomerang, everything came back hungry. And the forces they played with don't take embarrassment lightly. Demonic energy doesn't like to be mocked, so when they failed to destroy you, those forces turned on the ones who summoned them. You weren't just hard to curse, you were the worst kind of target for them. Untouchable. So now everything they conjured has become currency for their own destruction. The more elaborate the spell, the higher the price. And now those entities don't want apologies. They don't want another offering. They don't want another late-night chant. They want everything: health, mind, family, legacy, because that's what those people were trying to steal from you. The energy they played with is eating through their lives one piece at a time, and they can't undo it with a return to sender chant. It's done. They opened doors that can't be shut just because they're scared now. They triggered consequences that are custom built for their own destruction. In trying to dismantle you, they dismantled themselves, and now they're learning the hard way. Curses don't miss when they're sent to the wrong address. They just come home to their maker, hungrier than ever. Now let me put you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Their rituals are turning against them in ways that make their blood run cold. You know those midnight ceremonies they performed with such confidence. Those circles they drew with your name in the center. Every single one of those is now a portal working in reverse. What they sent out to capture you is flowing back into their lives, and it's not coming back empty. See, when they performed dark rituals against protected targets, they created spiritual doorways. And doorways work both ways. They thought they were opening channels to drain your energy, to siphon your light, to pull your blessings into their own lives. But what actually happened is they created direct lines between their spirits and forces they should have never contacted. And now those forces have access, unlimited access, to their minds, to their homes, to their families, to everything they hold dear. You want to know what keeps them up at night? It's not just bad dreams, it's the feeling of being watched when they're alone. It's the sensation of hands they can't see touching them in the dark. It's the whispers in languages they don't understand, but somehow know are talking about them. It's the objects moving in their peripheral vision. It's the technology failing at moments that reveal their secrets. It's the people in their lives suddenly asking questions they shouldn't know to ask. This isn't paranoia. This is spiritual consequence manifesting in real time. The entities they summoned to torment you have turned their attention to the summoners. And here's what makes it worse for them. These aren't entities that can be bargained with anymore. They're not interested in new offerings or promises. They want what they were promised when the ritual was performed. They want souls. They want complete control. They want everything. And these people are realizing too late that they signed contracts they can't break. Your anointing reversed the entire hierarchy. Now hunting is happening to those who hunted. People walked into your life thinking control was theirs, that the cards, the secrets and the power were held. To those people, you were just another target, someone to manipulate, monitor, drain and discard. But what wasn't seen coming was your awakening. The moment you remembered who you were, everything built around you started to collapse. Because your anointing doesn't beg, it reorders. It doesn't need revenge, it simply changes the atmosphere. And when that happened, the roles reversed. Going from being predators to being exposed happened. The very energy used to track and torment others began to recoil when coming near you. Why? Because you carry a spiritual frequency that can't be mimicked, faked or fought. It disrupts rituals, exposes intentions, weakens masks. Chasing anyone down or exposing anyone by one wasn't needed from you. Your energy did it for you. What's wild is that explanation can't be given for why things are falling apart. All that's known is that ever since paths crossed with you, things started to go wrong. Plans failed, protection lifted, secrets leaked, peace left. And it's not a coincidence, it's consequence. Your elevation spiritually flipped the entire hierarchy. Lifting a finger to defend yourself anymore isn't needed. Your vibration alone convicts every dark thing that tries to sit near you. Now watching is happening to those who watched you. Stalking is happening by the very forces once controlled. The darkness once commanded is turning against its former commanders. Spirits were summoned to hunt you, and now those same spirits are circling back, demanding payment. Because once you awaken to your purpose, you don't just survive, you shift the entire battlefield. You were called prey, but the moment you stood in your power, becoming the hunted happened to those who hunted, not because you cursed anyone, but because the light you carry cannot coexist with darkness without exposing it. That's the danger of your anointing. It doesn't argue, it reveals, and once revelation happens, the fall begins. Divine order is not a myth, it's now enforcing retribution. Laughter happened when you spoke about spiritual laws. Mockery happened around the idea of divine timing, cosmic justice, and universal balance. To certain people it all sounded like fantasy, harmless beliefs that couldn't touch anyone. But now, the very forces dismissed are pulling strings that can't be seen and enforcing laws that can't be outrun. What was called superstition has revealed itself to be structure, order, a system older than any ritual, stronger than any alliance, and more precise than anything ever feared. Divine order isn't about revenge or punishment, it's about correction. It restores what was violated, and every time action was taken against truth, purity, or divine assignment, this invisible system was triggered. The assumption was that if nobody stopped things right away, getting away with it happened. But divine justice doesn't operate on ego's timeline. It moves in silence, and then all at once, the rope gets long enough so that when it snaps, no way to escape it exists. The judgment being faced isn't random, it's tailored, specific, measured with exact weight based on what was done, what was known, and how many chances were given to stop. This is what divine order looks like in motion. Doors closing with no explanation, protection vanishing without warning, influence dissolving in silence. It's not just a reversal of fortune, it's justice correcting imbalance. Tampering happened with a bloodline that wasn't anyone's to touch. Messing with you wasn't the only thing that happened. Crossing into territory that was never supposed to be touched happened. Because you're not just a person walking through this life randomly, you're part of a sacred lineage, a living extension of ancestors who endured, fought, sacrificed, and protected something far greater than just survival. When you were targeted, dealing with one individual wasn't what happened. An entire bloodline was provoked that remembers everything. Spiritual rules exist that even darkness respects. Certain families, certain souls, certain bloodlines come with protection that isn't always visible, but is always present. Stepping into a realm of consequence happened the moment attempts were made to bind, curse, or sabotage you. To those attempting it, just a power move was happening, just another ritual, just another target. But to the spirit world, a direct assault was happening on a chosen vessel from a royal line of spiritual warriors. Your lineage isn't passive, it watches, it waits, and when a violation reaches a certain level, it activates. That's what's happening now. Realization didn't happen that your resilience wasn't just personal strength, it was inherited protection. You carry prayers, sacrifices, covenants, and spiritual authority in your DNA, and when attempts were made to destroy you, all of that rose up. Now every attack sent is being answered, multiplied, redirected, not just by the universe but by the very spirits who have guarded your family for generations. These aren't random ancestors. Battle-tested protectors exist who've seen this before and are now unleashing a force that doesn't ask for mercy. Tampering happened with a legacy that wasn't anyone's to touch. Attempts were made to disrupt a calling nobody could comprehend, and now answering isn't just to you, it's to the invisible army backing you, one that doesn't miss, doesn't rest, and doesn't forget. Mockery happened around your isolation, not knowing it was a divine setup. Laughter happened when you were alone. Whispers happened that you had no friends, no support, no backup. To certain people, your isolation looked like failure, like rejection. like you were crumbling in silence while others thrived in numbers. But what wasn't understood was that your season of solitude wasn't punishment. It was positioning. Abandonment wasn't happening. Hiding was happening. Being cut off wasn't happening. Sanctification was happening. While others were busy performing rituals, gossiping, and launching attacks, notice didn't happen that nothing was touching you the way intended. Drowning wasn't happening. Preparation was happening. The silence in your life wasn't empty. It was sacred. It was the sound of the divine constructing something around you that couldn't be penetrated. A spiritual fortress made of wisdom, resilience, clarity, and divine fire. Mockery happened of what wasn't understood. The thought was that being unseen meant being irrelevant. But you were never irrelevant. Refining was happening. The isolation gave you spiritual muscle that nobody else recognizes. It sharpened your discernment. It deepened your connection to the Most High. And now that the season of hiding is over, realization is happening that you didn't come back the same. You came back upgraded. While the thought was that you were being surrounded with darkness, confusion, and sabotage, surrounding is happening to those who surrounded you. By consequence, by exposure, by the very energies released, what was sent out is closing in. The rituals thought to make people powerful are backfiring in real time, and the one thought to be weak is now standing in the kind of power that can't be faked or fought. Your isolation wasn't weakness. It was divine strategy. Punishment wasn't happening. Preparation was happening for a level of protection and revelation nobody else will ever access. And now that the silence is broken and your voice is rising, realization is finally happening. You were never alone. Fortifying was happening. And now it's the turn of others to feel what it's like to be cornered by what can't be escaped. You don't put a hit out on someone unless you already failed to destroy that person. And now you understand why. A cult in your city tried everything. Coordination happened, conspiracy happened, forces were called on that were thought to guarantee your destruction. But failure happened, phosphanate, and that failure activated something nobody saw coming. A divine response, a cosmic correction, a spiritual reckoning that's dismantling everything built against you. The hit reversed, the bounty is on those who placed it now, and collection is happening by forces that don't need your permission. Your participation isn't required, your approval isn't waited for. You just had to survive, and you did. Outlasting happened, outgrowing happened, outliving every plan against you happened. And in doing so, you triggered the very justice certain people thought could be avoided forever. But this story isn't really about those people anymore. It's about you, about what you're stepping into now, about the power you've been carrying all along that's finally being recognized. You're not the victim in this story. You never were. You were always the catalyst, the disruptor, the chosen one who couldn't be broken no matter how hard anyone tried. And now you're walking into a season where that truth becomes undeniable. Everything meant to be blocked is opening up. Everything meant to be stolen is being returned. Everything meant to be stopped is being released. Not because revenge is happening, but because what was always meant for you is coming. The doors nobody could keep closed, the favor nobody could prevent, the blessing nobody could curse, the destiny nobody could derail. It's all coming, and it's coming with the full force of divine timing. So walk into it with your head high. Walk into it knowing what you survived. Walk into it carrying the authority of someone who's been tested and proven. You're not hoping for victory, you're already standing in it. A cult from your city has a heavy price on every head involved. But you've got a crown on yours, and nothing done, nothing tried, nothing plotted can remove it, because it was never anyone else's to touch in the first place. The hit reversed, the story flipped, the ending changed, and you're still here, still standing, still chosen, forever chosen. That's not luck, that's divine design. That's not coincidence, that's cosmic justice. That's not random, that's righteous retribution, and it's happening right now. For those who attacked you, consequences. For you, coronation. For those who cursed you, the price. For you, the prize. You won, not by becoming like anyone else, but by remaining you. And that's the greatest power of all. The spiritual atmosphere is shifting. Places where darkness used to thrive easily are becoming inhospitable to it, not because of human intervention, but because your presence as a chosen one who survived has altered the frequency. You're like a tuning fork that changed the pitch of everything around you, and darkness that was comfortable before is now agitated, restless, unable to settle. The feeling happens when rituals are attempted now. The atmosphere resists, the energy pushes back. What used to flow easily now requires tremendous effort for minimal results. Spiritual exhaustion exists from trying to force what used to happen naturally, and that exhaustion is showing up in every area of life for those involved. Physical fatigue, mental fog, emotional depletion, spiritual bankruptcy. Meanwhile, you're experiencing the opposite. Things that used to require effort are flowing naturally. Doors that used to be heavy are swinging open easily. Paths that used to be blocked are clearing automatically, not because you're trying harder, but because you're aligned correctly, and alignment creates flow, while misalignment creates friction that's grinding others down to nothing. You want to know the most poetic justice in all of this? The very thing meant to be used against you has become your greatest strength. Isolation was attempted, and isolation prepared you. Your mind was attacked, and mental warfare strengthened you. Your energy was meant to be drained, and you learned to protect your power. Your peace was meant to be stolen, and you discovered peace that can't be stolen. Everything thrown at you became a tool for your development. But when those same things come back to their source, no preparation exists, no training exists. No capacity exists to handle it, because resilience never had to be developed. Shortcuts were always used, manipulation was always used, dark forces were always used to bypass the growth process. So when real spiritual pressure comes, no foundation exists. Immediate collapse happens, like buildings with no structural integrity crumbling at the first real test. You were a mirror they couldn't destroy, so now they're haunted by their own reflection. They didn't just want to break you, they wanted to distort you, twist your image, stain your name, make you question your worth, so they wouldn't have to face their own emptiness. You didn't trigger them because you were loud or boastful. You triggered them because you reflected everything they weren't. You were walking proof that purity could still exist in a world they'd already sold to darkness. That's why they tried so hard to destroy you, because every time you stood in truth, it showed them who they really were. You were a mirror, not the kind that flatters, the kind that tells the truth, and the truth was unbearable to them. Your resilience exposed their weakness, your consistency exposed their chaos, your peace exposed their restlessness. They tried to twist your light into something dark, something dangerous, something unworthy. But no matter how much they lied, how much they gossiped, how much they attacked, how much they plotted, you didn't break, and now they're stuck with the one thing they can't outrun, themselves. People like that aren't afraid of consequences at first, they're afraid of clarity. As long as they can project their evil outward, they feel safe. But you didn't just survive, you refused to become like them, and that ruined the illusion. Now they can't blame you, they can't shame you, they can't reduce you. The mask they wore so comfortably started to crack the moment you refused to wear one. Now the haunting has begun. Not from outside forces, but from within. Their guilt is loud, their fear is louder, and their reflection is relentless. They're not haunted by you, but by what your presence stirred in their conscience. That ache they feel, that heaviness, that unraveling, it's the truth they buried, finally rising to the surface. You were never their enemy, you were their wake-up call, and they slammed it on snooze too many times. Now the alarm is ringing in their souls, and there's no more silence to hide in. Let me tell you about the specific ways your city is turning. You know how they operated in plain sight, how they held positions of influence, how they used their status as cover for their activities. All of that is being stripped away. Reputations they spent lifetimes building are crumbling over things that seem insignificant but reveal character. Opportunities they counted on are going to people nobody expected. Doors they thought they owned are closing without explanation. The community that once celebrated them is now questioning, not with loud accusations, with quiet doubt, with subtle distance, with polite excuses. People aren't sure why they feel differently about certain people. They just know something feels off, something doesn't sit right. Something makes them want to step back, and that intuition, that's the divine warning system activating in people who still have spiritual sensitivity. They're being protected from the cult without even knowing why, and those cult members can feel it happening. They feel the shift in how people look at them. They sense the change in how people respond to them. They detect the cooling of relationships they thought were solid. Obvious rejection isn't happening. Quiet release is happening. And that subtle rejection is worse because there's nothing concrete to fight against, nothing to defend, nothing to explain away. Just the slow, steady, undeniable experience of being set aside. Your survival triggered a divine hit list. They didn't expect you'd make it. Everything they did was designed to break you in ways you wouldn't recover from. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally. They stacked the odds against you with confidence that you wouldn't survive. But you did. Not only did you survive, you healed. You got up with scars that tell the story they tried to bury. And that's where the real problem began for them. Because your survival wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. It sent a message to every realm, seen and unseen. Their system failed, and when a system built on control, fear, manipulation and spiritual abuse fails, there are consequences. Not just because of what they did, but because of what your healing exposes. You didn't just walk away intact, you walked away as evidence. Living proof that darkness can't keep what the divine has already claimed. You became the contradiction to everything they promised the spirits they served. You were supposed to fold. You were supposed to lose your mind. You were supposed to disappear. But your peace, your strength, your clarity, all of it screams that they failed. And now that scream is echoing through the realms that once empowered them. This isn't about revenge. This is reckoning. What they set in motion is now circling back, not because you demanded it, but because divine law doesn't allow unfinished business to sit quietly forever. Their actions triggered consequences, and your survival signed the paperwork. The moment you reclaimed your name, your sanity, your purpose, the hit list activated. And it's not coming from you, it's coming from every spiritual force they mocked, every law they violated, every moment they tried to play divine over your life. The cost of what they did has matured. The debt can't be delayed, the balance is due, and this time there's no one left for them to hide behind. So walk into what's yours with your head high, walk into it knowing what you survived, walk into it carrying the authority of someone who's been tested and proven. You're not hoping for victory, you're already standing in it. Everything meant to be blocked is opening up, everything meant to be stolen is being returned. Everything meant to be stopped is being released, not because revenge is happening, but because what was always meant for you is coming. The doors nobody could keep closed, the favor nobody could prevent, the blessing nobody could curse, the destiny nobody could derail. It's all coming, and it's coming with the full force of divine timing. Your elevation isn't something you have to fight for anymore. It's something you get to walk into, prepared, refined, upgraded, unbreakable. You didn't come this far to only come this far. You came this far to go further, higher, deeper, stronger, and nothing done against you, nothing tried against you, nothing plotted against you can stop what's already been ordained for you. Your story isn't over. Your story is just getting started. And this next chapter is going to be everything others tried to prevent, everything others feared you'd become, everything you were always meant to be. The cult from your city has a heavy price on every head involved, and payment is being collected right now, in sleep, in waking hours, in relationships, in health, in finances, in reputations, in peace, in everything. The hit reversed completely, and you're walking free, walking empowered, walking in authority, nobody will ever touch, walking in purpose, nobody will ever stop, walking in victory, nobody will ever diminish. This is your moment, your season, your time, and you're stepping into it, not as someone who barely survived, but as someone who conquered, not as someone who got lucky, but as someone who was always protected, not as someone who's hoping things work out, but as someone who knows the outcome is already secured, because when you're chosen, when you're protected, when you're anointed, the ending is never in doubt. Only the timing, and the timing is now, right now, this moment, this breath, this new chapter. You're not the same person who entered that storm. You're the upgraded version who walked out of it, carrying wisdom nobody else can claim, carrying strength nobody else can measure, carrying authority nobody else can challenge. You won, not by becoming like those who attacked you, but by remaining you, and that's the greatest power of all.